We are back on Inside Politics. Our guest today is Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally. Governor, it wouldn't be a session of the legislature unless there were bills that were passed to make it easier to own and operate and have a gun permit in Tennessee. This year, a bill was passed and been signed into law that will allow people to get a cheaper permit and get it without having to have any firearms training directly. Is that a good idea?
I think they do have to have some training, and they do have to have a background check. The training is much more limited than the 8-hour courses.
They don't have to have live fire training?
They don't have to have live fire training. I think it's a
But isn't
video.
good gun ownership meaning that you know how to handle
a gun?
Handle a gun?
I would think so. I know when I was a young child, they had a shooting range, and Dad took my brother and I to it, and we learned how to handle a .22.
Lawmakers also did not this year approve a bill that would allow classroom teachers to have concealed firearms. The shootings seem to happen, especially this spring, almost every week. Do we need to look again at doing something like that? Or is that going too far?
I think it should be up to the principal to allow that. I would support allowing that on a very limited basis, and I think the principal would also have to notify the local police department so that people, if there was a shooting to occur, they'd know who was there that might possibly be responding with a firearm.
In terms of health care, both the House and Senate finally agreed on a waiver that would allow, particularly for parents,
Katie Beckett.
The Katie Beckett waiver that would allow parents that have profoundly disabled young people to be able to receive care, even though otherwise it would bankrupt their parents. They're not eligible for Medicaid. At one point, there was an impasse between the Senate and the House, and the Senate said, well, you'd almost rather cut taxes than do that. So what made you change your mind? Well,
it's actually an expansion of the Medicaid system, and traditionally we've found the numbers very soft. We always seem to underestimate the population, underestimate the cost, and we felt like that initially there were better things that we could do.
There are many compelling stories, and they're not based on age, for reasons for why people are suffering in their healthcare situation. Why does the legislature continue not to want to take advantage of literally billions of dollars that the federal government's been offering to do this? I mean, we've gone on for a long time, so quite a bit of dollars have been piling up that Tennessee's not using for this. Isn't it time to do something about this? And is the block grant the way to go? Isn't that going to be less money, not more?
According to the provisions in the block grant, it would have to be more of the same. The federal government could not decrease their contribution to the state of Tennessee, and also the amount in the block grant would be tied to the medical inflation index, and also the medical wage index would be changed. Tennessee's at the very bottom because some states, in order to pass Affordable Care, cut a deal with the Obama administration to raise their labor wage index.
In terms of overall tax policy in the state, the General Assembly this year did approve a bill that would allow feminine hygiene products to be made available free of charge to state prison inmates. Obviously, these women need those as a necessity. So why aren't feminine hygiene products, in terms of their sales tax, not also have that removed off of it? Because that's a necessity for all women.
Well, it is, and that's something we could look at in the future, I think.
The legislature also did not pass legislation to increase the age to 21 for young people being able to purchase cigarettes or vaping devices. Given the health problems that both those have, both vaping and smoking, why does the legislature not want to move that age up to 21?
Well, I think part of the problem was the bills were sponsored by the tobacco industry,
so they weren't tough enough, perhaps?
Yeah, and I think it was to show the federal government that at least that they were doing something.
Legislature did pass a bill that would ban local governments from being able to put taxes or ban on plastic materials in terms of cups and utensils. The idea being that the state would handle that better with a statewide policy. But where is the statewide policy? Nobody seems to know what that policy is going to be, and yet now local governments can't do anything about it at all.
Well, the problem with local governments passing different ordinances is you could have a patchwork of ordinances.
Well, where
throughout the state.
Where is the statewide effort to try to deal with this? I mean, it looks like the state doesn't want anybody else to do anything about it, but they don't have their plan ready to move forward on that.
Well, I don't know how many local. In fact, I don't think there have been any local ordinances enacted. I think in order for the state to do something, there'll have to be legislation introduced in committee and taken up by the full legislature.
There were some bills that got pushback from the LGBTQ community as being discriminatory. There were also some businesses that joined with them and some professional clubs who said about that. The legislature kind of pulled back on some of that. Are you concerned that Tennessee might get themselves, if they pass one of these bills, much like North Carolina, to have the kind of blowback on them in terms of boycotts and things that would be hurtful to the state? Do we need to find a way, some middle ground for this between religious liberties and the rights of citizens like LGBT citizens?
I think we probably do, and probably a lot of it is governed by federal law, and I think that the legislature needs to be careful about providing an environment that's not conducive to growth of businesses in the state.
Governor McNally, thank you so much for coming to talk about the session and about what's been a difficult week for a lot of folks up on the Hill.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
And thank you for joining us on Inside Politics. I'll be back here again for a future show. If you got enough politics in the meantime, go to the News Channel 5 website. You'll find my Capitol View commentary there. There's new commentary posted every Friday afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you back here next time. Goodbye.